attention, please.
Thanks, Steve. Welcome back, everybody. Hope you had a good break for your bodies and your hearts and your heads and your integrated selves. So we're going to jump into this sort of marathon 30,000-foot view of tools and practices that are emerging in the new economy. And there's a saying that I like that I just want to put out there right off the top, is that that it says all models are wrong, some are helpful. So I'm not claiming that this is the way we have to do it. What I'm saying is these are the things I'm noticing that are emerging, and somehow together, collectively, they seem to be creating a picture of something that we can move toward. It's not the end of the story. I'm sure there'll be new things that come from now. Even in the 3 years that I've been diving deep into this stuff, so much has changed. Victoria has just transformed, certainly with our new mayor and council. Past 6 months, it's like living in a whole new city. And it's showing up manifestly on the streets. And Lisa Helps attended the first Living the New Economy all 7 days, except when she had to go back for a council meeting. She was a city councillor at the time, not mayor, and was just blown away by the quality of the presentations and so on. It was, 7 days, 3 events a day, on all the subjects I'm about to compress into an hour. So, just ready, set, go. Yeah, so money is empty. It's entry on an accounting ledger. We tend to subscribe money with all this sort of baggage, but it's a tool. It enables things to happen. It's like a hammer. It's like a hammer does a certain job, money does a certain job. And we need many tools in the box to have a regenerative ecosystem to reverse those trends. I love this quote: humans have survived for more than 2 million years without the New York Stock Exchange, but cannot survive more than a few days without food and water. So it gives you a bit of a shift in perspective. Just to tie back to what we did, use that integrated three-centered way of knowing and listening to what I have to say, and just see what you feel, where and how, and see what connections you notice. Things might feel off, or they might feel like they fit, so you might notice integrity lacking or present, and maybe sense in some way that you know with your heart maybe that this is the new way forward, even though your head's going, no. And again, everything that I'm going to talk about, none of them is the answer, but collectively they do seem to point to something. Okay, we're going to start with the sharing economy. A lot of people have heard about this. Vancouver even has a sharing economy person on city council or with the city. Yep. Anyway, sometimes called the reputation economy or the trust economy, and it's a huge spectrum of collaborative consumption type stuff. And people would argue that some of it isn't actually sharing economy and some of it is, and we're not going to get into that because that's going to happen. As these new things come forward, there are going to be things that don't work, and there are going to be things that do work. And so, but there's that kind of a prototyping process that we need to go through, and you just keep getting better and better at it as you go through different iterations. So some of them make billions, like Airbnb as a collective thing. Some are free, like, those little tiny libraries people are putting up in their neighborhoods. There's a bunch of them in Victoria. People put in their books they've read, and they pull out a book that they want to read, and it just sort of self-sustains. It's self-regenerative, if you will. Let's see, other examples are car shares, bike shares, tool or toy libraries, the regular library that's been around for books. So it's not a new concept. We talk to our 2-year-olds about it all the time. Sometimes our neighbor's garage is the place where we do our sharing, using tools and lawnmowers and so on. Again, it becomes part of the placemaking work. Mark talks about the Walmarts that everybody has in their basements that could be used for things that we don't necessarily need to go to the store to get something if our neighbor has it and never uses it, and you may as well have it anyway. And also in this realm, I heard a story about a woman whose job had been cut from full-time to half-time, and she didn't have enough income to sustain her life. So she said, well, I'm living on my own, I have a spare bedroom, I don't use my car all the time. And so she rented out her room in an Airbnb kind of way and started sharing her car for income and made up the difference for herself. So there are ways that, because we still need money, we still need cash. It's the chances of us not needing the federal currencies that we currently use is low. I think it's still going to be a thing. Anybody else have any examples of sharing economy that they know from their own areas that have popped up? Jordan?
Well, there's things like, also like clothing swaps and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I went to one last week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that your lovely black dress?
It's actually a little shrug and a dressing.
Community gardens in some cases.
Yes.
Protection.
Absolutely. Yeah. Anything else? We'll move
Well,
right-
you're probably going to go into crowdfunding separately, but it's kind of a form of sharing economy.
It is.
Like,
Yep. Yep. Excuse me. Seems to be going through a lot of water.
As we should.
It's great. Well, yes and no, I guess. Anyway, talking a lot. So next one, Jordan. Green economy. Something we definitely were talking about this morning. Ecological, environmental economy. So economic activity that measures its success by how gentle and or regenerative its activities are on the land, living beings, and the ecology of the planet as a whole. There's a Jeffrey Sachs quote here: by separating nature from economy, we have walked blindly into tragedy. And an expanded quote from Tad again: we pour faithfulness into an economy predicated on turning living things into dead things. What if we were more faithful to the sources of our life than to the forces that took life away and sold it back to us in the form of products and services? A little bit weird when you think about it. So this is fairly easy to understand. I won't spend too much time on it this afternoon because we talked about it a lot this morning by a couple of very adept people. I'll just read you one definition: the United Nations Environment Programme's definition of the green economy. A green economy is one that results in improved human well-being and social equity while significantly reducing environmental risks and ecological scarcities. In its simplest expression, a green economy can be thought of as one which is low carbon, resource efficient, and socially inclusive. And there's a website I was going to mention here. I don't know if I put it up there. vigreeneconomy.com. It's VancouverIslandGreenEconomy.com. If you're interested. Folks who are doing that down in Victoria, trying to remember the name. No, she has the Green Scene. Yeah. Jillian Doucette, Synergy, have put up that website, and so it's got a way of talking about measuring the green economy.
I just have another little question, because something came up this morning that I hadn't been aware of, and that is that there's a difference in these words of eco-economy, is that what it was?
Ecological.
And ecological economy and environmental economy.
Yeah.
I didn't know there was a difference, and it would be really easy to think that people think they're the same.
Yeah, there's a lot. I actually have a whole list of economies that people are talking about that we'll get to in a second. But you're right, and I think it's not that one is better than the other, that they might be pointing to different things, and I don't know if it's really, we need to sort of tease apart what the differences are, but it's more about how are they working together or not. Yeah, and that's my focus anyway. Next one. So gift economy. Charles Eisenstein goes on, tells a lot about the gift economy if you're interested in this book. Oh, and by the way, you'll get some green economy stuff from this book, Mobilizing the Green Imagination. Anthony Weston, Jordan, I know Jordan's read that. It's Good one. And by the way, afterwards, if you want to come up and look at this stuff, these books, feel free. So a mode of exchange where valuables are not sold, but rather given without an explicit agreement for immediate or future rewards. Anybody been to a gift circle? The Kootenays and Vancouver. And Victoria. What can I say? It's one of those things, but it's a community opportunity to share what you got, basically. You acknowledge what you're grateful for, you talk about what you need, and you talk about what you have to offer. And there's something magical that happens in those circles where the, or intangible, where the needs and the offerings somehow match up. And you just help each other out.
I have an example of that I just read about. It's very interesting. You know how there's an emergence now of shared office space?
Yes, shared spaces. That's another sharing economy kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, but I think most of them is still you have to pay $500 a month or some cash transaction. But there's a model in Holland and Europe where if you show up with an expertise or a gift of yourself that you can give to someone else in the space, you're allowed to have space there, you're allowed to use it. They call it social capital. And I
Yes.
think they get the seed funding from a government agency to actually pay the rent.
Yeah.
The users as well, all they need to do is have a gift to offer someone else.
And that's a beautiful example of how these things are starting to blend. And they're merging together and they're working together. They brought in the gift economy and the sharing economy, social capital. We'll talk about 8 forms of capital at the end of this, and social capital is one of them. Yeah. Charles Eisenstein says, well, gifts can be reciprocal just as often they flow in circles. I give to you, you give to someone else, and eventually somebody gives back to me. And that's one of the founding premises of crowdfunding. You're not giving to somebody because they're going to give to your crowdfunding campaign, but you're giving to somebody who will give to somebody who will give to somebody, and eventually maybe you'll have your own crowdfunding campaign and people will give to you too. So that's a foundational principle there. There are a lot of indigenous communities who had versions of something that's locally called the potlatch ceremony, and it was about gift giving as well. I'm not an expert, I just tell you this right now, but so basically those who gave away or destroyed the most were the richest in the community. It was an economic practice that was used by many of the West Coast indigenous peoples as well as others. The specific practices varied widely, and when the potlatch was criminalized by the Canadian and American governments, their economies were killed as well. That was probably deliberate, I guess. The word comes from Chinook, which means to give away or gift, and was also originally from a New Chalneth word that means to make a ceremonial gift in a potlatch. So let's move on. Other economies. This is just some of them. When you start digging into this stuff, everything creeps up. Everyone's got a new economy word. It's kind of popular. So there's circle economy, which is like no waste systems, closed loop systems. There's solidarity economy, where we're all in this together. Sacred economy, which Charles gets into in his book. Inner economy, which you could call that inner work that we're doing in order to do the cleaner work out there. Local economies, steady state economies, and up there. And then the other side of the coin, monoculture economy, stagnant economy, dirty economy. And I just came across this one. Wes Reagan, who's nominee for Vancouver East Green Party of Canada, came up with stupid economy. It's 6:20 p.m. and you're having dinner at home with the family. The TV is on in the background, and the business and financial report comes on. It runs for all of 2 minutes and focuses on the numbers from Wall Street and TSX before briefly talking about oil and maybe gold, and then closing with the dollar. This is the stupid economy. Next, community currencies. This is Jordan's realm of expertise, but I'm going to talk about it, and he can correct me if I'm wrong. Jordan told you he had a master's in economy, can I say?
Sure.
With a specialty in community currencies,
Yeah.
right? Specifically open money or community currencies?
No,
in
community
general?
currencies.
Yeah, okay. Michael Linton, who lives here on the island, you may know about him, is considered the grandfather of community currencies, starting with LETS systems that were implemented around the world at the time. It was a form of community currency. Right now, and the one that I know about the most is called, that he's working on, is the open money system. And so in this system, the money itself, seed stock is an example, by the way, that's used in Vancouver. It's only valuable if it keeps circulating. You can't hold on to it and gain value. So in the fact that it keeps circulating, it starts to lift everybody's boat. The business, the not-for-profit, the individual, all benefit, and nobody loses as they're increasing their capacity to acquire the things that they need, food or whatever. So you can't hoard it. Mark Silver has a business called Heart of Business. He helps entrepreneurs thrive. And he comes from a very heart-centered place, and his business is hugely successful. He's helped thousands and thousands of entrepreneurs make money so that they can sustain their lives from that very grounded, clear place. And we were talking about hoarding money, and he said, it's not greed, it's grief. And so we're trying to fill the holes in ourselves, our sadnesses, the places where we feel broken with cash. Not all of us, but that's sometimes what we're doing. And if we're not doing it with money, maybe we're doing it with something else. And so again, he's pointing to the need to do the inner peace. I like saying that. And building capacities in ourselves so that we can do the work more cleanly out there. And when we're filling that hole, it doesn't work, so we keep doing it. Often you get sort of an initial hit, oh, that was good, and then you just need more because it's not actually filling the hole. We need to address the hole directly. Anything else I should say on that, Jordan? Anything to add?
Oh, we'll head down the rabbit hole if we
Okay, we won't go there. Just know it's a thing.
Talk to me later.
Yeah. and same with most of these things. We're not going to dig very deep. So, in digging, question?
Seems to me that what you're talking about is addiction.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's another word.
Keeps on
Yeah.
regenerating its own downward spiral toward destruction, death, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, and I think it's sort of the whole self-medication piece that is part of addiction. Some people call our culture a non-culture. Stephen Jenkinson's work does that, and we tend, as a culturally, to feel at a loss, and we don't quite know why, and there's something missing, and maybe if I buy another couch, I'll feel better, or maybe if I have a drink, then I won't feel it anymore because it's uncomfortable, and those kinds of things. Sorry, I know you all just got your liquor tickets, but anyway, yeah, I think that's an accurate statement here. So starting quickly here with indigenomics, it was a term coined by a woman named Carol Ann Hilton. New Chalneth Nation. She was in Victoria. She's spoken at all of the Living the New Economy events on the subject. So it's basically the application in a modern world of ancient indigenous economic practices and principles. I'm going to read you a quote by another First Nations fellow, Richard Wagamese, or Wagames. Do you guys know him? Wagamese. Thank you. I've never heard it said. And I forgot to write down what nation he's from. I apologize for that. And this goes back to before when we were talking about the earth as resources or the earth as relationships or all our relations. So I'll read this piece. I've been considering the phrase all my relations for some time now. It's hugely important. It's our saving grace in the end. It points to the truth that we are all related. We are all connected. We all belong to each other. The most important word is all, not just those who look like me, sing like me, dance like me, speak like me, pray like me, or behave like me. All my relations. It means every person, just as it means every blade of grass, rock, mineral, and creature. We live because everything else does. If we were to collectively choose to live that teaching, the energy of that change of consciousness would heal all of us and heal the planet. We do it one person, one heart at a time. We are connected. We are the answer. So Carol Ann and her work, she has a company called Transformation with Angel Hunt, and they work to incorporate this Aboriginal worldview into communities, particularly First Nations communities, but others as well. So bringing industry, government together to design new approaches for sustainable, inclusive development in those nations. She's told me stories about things like going into a nation, a community where they had 90% unemployment, and applying some of these principles to start to shift that kind of world that they're living in. Feminomics is a word used by Nina Simons. She's president and co-founder of Bioneers, a huge event that happens every year. So she says, when you improve the status, rights, and equity of women, global studies consistently show that everything around them improves. Donna Ann Morton insists that we need way more women in the realm of economics than we have. She works in impact investing realm. So, from economics to environment, education, health, peace, and security, given that much of the destruction globally results from economic motives, shifting the values, structures, and practices of the economy is central, and women seem destined to play a decisive role. It's about how women, a gender lens, and valuing the well-being of people and planet can converge to inform new visions for finance, business, economics, and culture. We're going to just move right along. And I'm sorry about this one. It's not by me. Little, you know, well, things cross over in the new economy anyway. So integration. Integration. It's more whole. We'll go with that. So this is a realm where you really see the bridging, interestingly, between old and new economy, and you can really see clearly what's starting to shift here. I don't know how well you can read that. So a few things happening in Canada. The Community Social Planning Council has a community investment fund now that's 100% local, you can invest in. Wolverton Securities just opened a new department with Stephen Whip Financial and Co. And they're working to start to change the sorts of things you can invest in. Read that little quote. So responsible invested assets have grown 68% in 2 years. More than $1 trillion, and that's a third of total invested assets. And that much money starts to make a bit of noise and get its voice heard. So things are shifting, even in Canada, in the investment world. Another organization that is in this realm where you can make dividends from carbon offsets. They just launched their carbon offset program, actually. It's this company, if you want to take a look, World Tree. And they've got a very interesting thing going on, and it's both a sustainable endeavor in terms of the planet and the people, and you can make money at it. So that's nice, because we still need that. In the US right now, and hopefully in Canada in a year or two, is a company called Principium. They talk about moving money from harm to healing. And they've now moved billions. They haven't been going for very long. I'd say, how long would you think? This is Donna Morton. 2 years?
Yeah, I don't know.
It's about 2 years. and it's easier to do this stuff in the US than it is in Canada. It's extraordinarily expensive to get into, to start an investment company in Canada. It's like $500,000 per province or something, that per person who's doing the work. Just heard about this one, an organization called Slow Money has a soil trust, and on their website they have a great list of other investment opportunities. That's the US. There just isn't all that much happening in Canada relatively. And then something pointed to, when you get to the end of this book, regenerative enterprise, that I don't think this exists yet, but there are people working on it, where when you get a collection of regenerative enterprises in an enterprise ecosystem where they support each other and create all 8 forms of capital that we'll get into, that it's possible to invest in that and get a return. Single enterprise, not so possible, but when you get an ecosystem of enterprises together collectively in some region or something, that's something that's emerging, and we're getting there.
Yay.
Our eco-village up at Shawnigan Lake, they used to be able to invest in their mortgage for a return, but they just changed to a cooperative model, and I'm not sure. Anybody know what happened there with that? So I don't know if that's still happening or not, but anyway, moving right along. Peer-to-peer lending and crowdfunding. There's an organization in Victoria called Community Microlending that Lisa Helps started, actually. They do loans under $5,000, which is really micro. Depending on who you talk to, micro means very different things. It's like, yeah, so this is for banks. Loans under $250,000 are considered micro. And Van City, I think it's under $100,000 even for Van City. It's considered a micro loan.
The credit unions, they have a microloan program, which is a $5,000 thing that is specifically for youth under 35.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And yeah, so the terminology around microloans, I think, is shifting a little bit
Oh, good.
in terms of what it means, what it actually means.
Yeah, these things, a lot of these things are in transition, and you can't keep up with it.